Thank you very much. So imagine what your city will look like in 2050. Close your eyes. Imagine it. If you can't imagine your city in 2050, then we haven't done our work. We haven't done the careful planning, and we haven't had the conversations that we need to have to plan our city for the future. It's like my parents. They're 90 years old. 40 years ago, when they were 50, they never thought about becoming 90. They did not plan adequately for this time. And my siblings and I are trying to give them choices that they can make now before the choices are made for them. I feel it's just like our cities. We have to plan now so that we are making good choices for the growth of our cities. And this is why. 2/3 of the buildings that we will require in 2050 have not yet been constructed. 66% of the buildings that we will need in 2050 are not yet built. There is some big change coming our way. But we live in a community like Santa Barbara, a very idyllic community, where we think that everything is going to stay just as it is forever. It's like my parents, a bit in denial. We know that things are going to change, but we don't want to deal with it. 2 billion more people will be living in cities worldwide. 2 billion more people. 100 million of those people, 100 million more people will be living in cities in the United States. California will have a population of 50 to 70 million people. Most of those people will live in major metropolitan areas like San Francisco and Los Angeles. And where is Santa Barbara? Right in between. We have some big changes coming our way. And what that means for Santa Barbara is if a city like Los Angeles does not change its land use patterns, the city of Los Angeles will require an additional 834 square miles of developable land. Los Angeles will sprawl into our community, into our city. Camarillo, Ventura, Santa Barbara. There are some big environmental, economic, and social changes on the horizon. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had 113-degree temperatures in this city. I mean, it was shocking. I grew up in Arizona, and I thought, where am I? We have the threat of fires and earthquake constantly. And we have the threat of these oil rigs right off our coast. We also, this community, Santa Barbara, also has its roots in an agricultural, vast agricultural community known for its organic farming and its amazing wines. And that is all threatened by our environment. And our environmental threats then threaten our economy. Santa Barbara's no-growth posture, if you will, has created a city of haves and have-nots. We cannot house the people that live in this city, that work in this city, I'm sorry. So we have 30,000 people a day commuting 90 miles round trip to work in Santa Barbara. Is that sustainable? I say not. It contributes then to our social issues. We're not immune to homelessness. We're not immune to gang violence. And our population is aging at such a rate that by 2050, in 40 years, it will double. We have an amazing situation with higher education in Santa Barbara. We have 5 major educational institutions, bringing a diverse population of students into our city. But will those students be able to live in Santa Barbara once they graduate? Or will they have to move because they can't afford to live here. We have to play three-level chess. It has to be environmental and social and economic. We can no longer have one or the other. It has to be one and the other. We have to get out and we have to elect public officials that are committed to taking a long-term view in our city, that are willing to make the tough choices. We have to be educated, you and me, about what those choices are and the issues that face our communities, whether it's Santa Barbara or any other community. There will always be the quick fix. People will come out and say, I have the answer to preserve Santa Barbara. Let's reduce the height of buildings in Santa Barbara. Let's make everything 40 feet, as demonstrated in this slide. Well, let's go back to our three-level chess game. Does it meet our environmental strategy? Is it sustainable? Or are we going to promote sprawl and force people out of the city and homes being built on the Gaviota Coast and outside of Santa Barbara so that people have to be on the roads every single day commuting into Santa Barbara? Or is it economically viable? Well, nobody's going to build buildings if they can only build something that's 2 stories. And what does that do to our social piece? It makes Santa Barbara, again, a city that is unaffordable, and people that need to come in to work in this city, firemen, teachers, nurses, can't live in the community in which they work. Well, I say that we have to focus on the steak and not the peas. Now, a great example of that in California, well, really in our nation, is our mass transportation. In any country in this world, basically, major industrialized nations, you can get around without a car. You can go from London to Paris in a couple of hours under the ocean. But you can't get from San Francisco to Los Angeles on the ground in less than 7 hours. We're addicted to our cars. Our cars are the peas. Mass transportation is the steak. And if we focus on the steak, we will have opportunities like, why not have wind farms out in our channel instead of oil rigs, producing renewable energy? Let's embrace density in Santa Barbara. Now I know, there are high-rises, this is Tel Aviv. You know, there are high-rises, we could all get wound up about that, but it has to be contextual to Santa Barbara. But density, we have to embrace it. We also have to embrace mass transportation. And let's use some new technology, battery-powered stackable cars. There are going to be new housing options, lots of new housing options, housing multiple generations, green roofs, shared organic gardens, opportunities to move walls within these units to adapt to the lifestyle, kids, grandparents, 2 families living together. And here's an example of what's happening right now in Santa Barbara. This is the old Vons grocery store site in downtown next to one of the most historic buildings in Santa Barbara. This was built in 1958. This is a great example of innovation and preservation. This project will include new units, 37 residential units, a public market, a green roof on the public market, and sustainability initiatives embedded from stem to stern in this project. This is a great example today of innovation and preservation. Why am I asking you about 2050? That seems like an awful long way away. But it's the midpoint in this century. And it's close enough that we can see our good decisions in play, and it's far enough away that we can plan. The next move is yours. I hope that we plan wisely and that we make really good choices so that we have really good choices in 2050. Thank you.